Welcome to Chemistry with Miss E. Let's go over naming and writing formulas for covalent bonds, all right? So, covalent bonds, in my opinion, are easier to name and write formulas for than ionic bonds, but you still want to make sure that you have it down and that you know everything that there is to know about naming and writing formulas for covalent bonds. I want to start by showing an example real quick, okay? So, I'm just going to go straight to what an answer would look like. In 2O5, I notice that I have two nonmetals here. Remember that two nonmetals is what a covalent bond is made up of. And also remember that covalent is the same thing as molecular. So if your teacher or your textbook is referencing these bonds as molecular, that is the same thing, okay? So these are nitrogen and oxygen are both nonmetals, and you can see that we have N2O5, all right? This is the formula, and the name would be dinitrogen pentaoxide, right? Or pentoxide, okay? You could get rid of the A here and do pentoxide. It's teacher preference. So dinitrogen, where's that di coming from? I have two nitrogens, that makes sense. And then notice the ending here. O is oxygen, right? And oxygen's not written, but rather it's just that like base part, right? The root word of it, and it's oxide, right? So we have an ending in ide. We have the first element, name is as normal. But both of these elements do have prefixes that come from the subscript number that they had on them in the formula. So I wanted to just show you a bird's eye view real quick here of the rules and kind of the answer almost for naming a covalent compound so that you can see then and we can work backwards. So some things to keep in mind, as I mentioned. Covalent bonds are made up of only nonmetals, okay? We are using prefixes for the subscript and vice versa, just as you saw with the di, right, and the penta, okay? So the subscripts are these little numbers below, and di and penta, okay? So those are the prefixes for that. You do not use mono for the first element. Now this is a rule that most people know that most people don't know that they already know this rule, right? We all know CO2 is carbon dioxide, right? Have you ever heard anybody say mono carbon dioxide? No, absolutely not, right? So we do know this rule without knowing that we know this rule, but just remember we do not use mono for the first element. You do use any other prefix for the first element, but don't use mono, okay? So if there's one element of the, if there's one atom, so one subscript on the first element, don't say mono. You would say mono for the second element though, if there is one of the second element listed, okay? All right, the first element has the normal ending. We didn't change anything about the ending here. We said nitrogen as a whole, but the second element does end in ide, okay? So definitely make sure you do that, because when you have an element ending in ide, you are representing that it's a bond, and that is what's happening here. These are covalent bonds. You do want to make sure that you know your prefixes. This is the trickiest part to naming covalent bonds because the students have to memorize the prefixes majority of the time. If your teacher gives them to you, you're very lucky, but most teachers do not, and this is something that would be required of you to have to memorize. So let's go through them. The prefix for one is mono, okay? I tell my students something you don't want to get, right? Number two, something I don't want to happen to you guys, di, right? Number three, something you should always do in chemistry class, try, right? Number four, like that building block game, right? You have tetra, like Tetris, right? Number five, just like a shape with five sides, a pentagon, right? You have penta. Six, again, a very common one, hexagon, hexa. Number seven, this is the most commonly missed prefix, just from all of my exams in the past years. Students miss the 7 prefix the most, okay? So don't forget it. It's hepta, with a P and a T in the middle. Hepta is 7. 8, that one's pretty simple. You've got an octagon, right? Octa means 8. 9, I need reference like Ariana Grande's grandma, right? Which colors a nona, right? So that's what I remember about that one. And number 10, right? Deca, like a common club that they have at some public high schools. So use your prefixes, make sure you know them, use them and reference them when you're first starting out, but really make sure that you're making yourself memorize these prefixes because you do need to know them for the exam time, okay? So, mono, di, tri, tetra, penta, hexa, hepta, octa, nona, deca, all right? Say those as fast as you can. I always do that in my class. It's really fun to hear them try, all right? So, let's go ahead and practice this, all right? Keeping all of the rules in mind. Number one, we have H2O, okay? So I'm going to say di because I have 2 of them, and then di what? Hydrogen, right? I have 2 hydrogen, so I'm going to say hydrogen. And then I'm going to say I have 1 oxygen, so I need to say mono, right? And then I'm not going to put oxide here. We don't want to say monoxide. That sounds funny, so we're just going to say monoxide. Make sure you're ending it in ide, all right? So dihydrogen monoxide is the fancy name for water. So next time you're at the dinner table, Ask your parents for a glass of dihydrogen monoxide, all right? That's a good joke always. Number 2, we have SO2. So I have a sulfur, and I have one of them, but do I say mono for the first element? No, you do not. So you are just going to write sulfur. And then I have 2 oxygens. 2, the prefix is di, and oxygen turns into oxide. There we go. So sulfur dioxide. These are always the ones where you sound super smart and fancy, right? It's a long word, a long name, and it sounds really fun. Number 3, we have S2F6. So S is sulfur, and I have 2 of them. So I need to say disulfur, right? And then I have 6 fluorine. 6 is hexa, and then fluorine will turn into fluoride, okay? So disulfur hexafluoride. Writing it exactly as they tell us to, okay? Number 4, P7O3. So I need to know the prefix for 7. That is going to be hepta. And then P stands for phosphorus. So hepta, phosphorus. And then I have 3 oxygens. The prefix for 3 is tri. Oxygen turns into oxide, trioxide. All right? Number 5, NO. This is not telling you no, don't do this problem. This is a molecule that's existing here. We've got NO. So this is going to be N is nitrogen. I do have one of them, but I don't say mono for the first element. I have one of the second element as well, but I do say mono for the second element. So we are going to say nitrogen monoxide. Awesome. All right, number 6 through 10, we are going to flip it. We are going to go from the name to the formula, all right? So I see silicone. I need to figure out what the abbreviation is for that, the element symbol, and that's going to be Si. There's no prefix here, so that means there's just one of them. Dioxide, the element is oxygen, and I have 2 of them, so SiO2, all right, otherwise known as sand. Number 7, hexanitrogen. So my element is nitrogen, so I need to do N with a hexa standing for 6, and then I have decaiodide. Iodide was changed from iodine, which is the I symbol, and deca means 10, all right? There we go. Moving along, number 8, we have carbon monoxide. Carbon, just one of them with an element C, and monoxide, oxides coming from oxygen, which is an O, and mono means 1, so just CO, all right? Carbon monoxide. Very deadly, okay? All right, number 9, disulfur octabromide. Disulfur, so sulfur is my element. I'm going to put S for sulfur. Di means 2. Bromide comes from bromine, which is a Br. Octa stands for 8. So S2Br8. Try this last one on your own. If you haven't yet and you're feeling confident, I'll give you a few seconds. Try number 10. Pause it. All right, coming back, we've got dinitrogen. So nitrogen stands for N. Di stands for 2. Trioxide. Oxide's coming from oxygen, which is an O, and tri means 3. N2O3 would be your final answer here. And that is naming and writing formulas for covalent bonds. I'll see you on the next one.